Good evening, everybody. We're absolutely delighted to be coming to you in concert from the Hawkswell Theatre in Sligo. We're going to play a mix of Michael's compositions and just traditional tunes, obviously, as well. We're going to start off with two reels. The first one is called The Knotted Chord, and the second tune is composed by Sligo flute player Colm O'Donnell, and it's called Up Spinkeen. So I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. I've grown up in County Sligo myself, and we're now living in Sligo, both Michael and I, for the last probably 15 years. I suppose I grew up in a county which is synonymous with fiddle and flute playing. My parents were really interested in music, and they got us to attend lots of classes, started off playing whistle, did various instruments. I seemed to get a natural flair for the flute. It's the Irish wooden flute, of course. Grew up going to concerts an awful lot, I suppose, so the environment was there at home that involved listening to music, having Radio na Gaeltacht on a lot, and I suppose the opportunity was there if the interest was there. So I was lucky to grow up in Sligo, I suppose. So many older great musicians that I would have listened to as I grew up.
I actually started as a 3-year-old on a whistle, singing into a whistle for a couple of weeks before I realised you blow into it. And my father and my parents basically got me onto the whistle and the fiddle, flute, concertina, piano. And it was only when I was at the age of 9 or 10 that my father, we negotiated terms whereby I would learn the harp in order so that I could teach my sister the harp. My sister's name was Fliuit, and she was too young to learn. And my father said that if he paid me 10p, would I learn the harp? This is very true. So basically, I didn't really tell people I played the harp because I was the only male person that I knew that played the harp at the time. And I felt it was very much a stereotypical female instrument at the time. And I was a bit embarrassed to play it, but I secretly loved it.
Cormac fáilte is rih an macatá agin tá trúr cluine agin agus Owen, Cillian agus Donlan an tanimtá orthú. Agus inis be Owen ag glecho párs de cheoil chum, so beidir go ducha amach an seo Owen agus sí sias agus lig de scían sin. So this is Owen, our son, our oldest son, and lockdown has been very good from that point of view for playing music at home. And Owen has been getting lessons from both mum and dad. And we're going to try a piece now that I wrote approximately 6 or 7 years ago. It's for a suite of music called Baroiva. Agus an taine matá an piece na Ardú Manman. And Ardú Manman is an Irish title that refers to Brian Boru when he became the King of Ireland for the first time, uniting the whole of all the chieftains and the tribes. So we're going to give this piece a go. Is that okay? So, Camila Magov.
Well done, on.
Okay.
One of the fabulous things about the harp, as opposed to other instruments at that time for me, is that it did afford me an opportunity to travel all over the world, primarily as a young lad with the Belfast Harp Orchestra under the direction of Janet Harbison. And as I say, in 1992, we were able to play in the Ulster Hall in Belfast and the National Concert Hall in Dublin. And then we were invited to play in Carnegie Hall the same year in New York and the Boston Symphony. And then with June, as my musical partner and then wife, the harp and flute has brought us literally all over the world, from New Zealand to Australia to different places. We were both fortunate to travel with President Mary McAleese at the time in 2007, to be her musical musicians, along with 3 or 4 others. And I suppose in 2011, I was afforded the opportunity to play for Queen Elizabeth during her banquet, that famous banquet in Dublin Castle in 2011. So I firmly put it down to the harp as being, just our national instrument, and it was a massive opportunity for me.
We're going to try a few jigs this time, and the first one is called the Puka Jig, and the second tune is a tune we learned from the box playing of Danny O'Mahony, who is a good friend of ours, a County Kerry accordion player. So we weren't able to get a name for this tune, but we call it O'Mahony's ourselves. So hope you enjoy it.
Thank you.
So in 1995, I wrote my first suite of music called the Famine Suite, which was then resurrected there 2 years ago and played as part of the Bulk Festival. But that was my first suite of music. The reason I feel that I can compose so fluidly is that I feel that the harp is really the reason behind it. I mean, if I had my harp in front of me here, like, you know, my bottom finger here would be my double bass. My middle finger here would be my violin 2. My thumb is my violin 1. You know, my right hand, you see, I associate instruments with the fingers on my harp. I spend an awful long time to try and make something sound simple and melodic and memorable. You know, and when people hear my melodies, some people say, God, this sounds so easy and so simple, but they don't realise the sheer sweat involved in actually getting there.
So we're going to continue with a piece now that I wrote in 2015. In 2015, Prince Charles and his wife were invited to Sligo. And the County Council invited me to write a mini suite of music to represent that visit. I had to acknowledge the visit of Queen Elizabeth to Ireland in 2011 and to link that into the Prince's visit in 2015 and the whole notion of reconciliation. So it was called the Reconciliation Suite, and I'm going to play a piece called Reconciliation. So it's Jenna Tre Shin agus an Shin Because I kind in the Asian, so. agah?
All I can say in terms of how important it is for a child to get an opportunity to play an instrument, I think those who do get an opportunity to play an instrument are very, very lucky in life. I suppose we would count ourselves very lucky that our parents had the inclination and the desire and the foresight to think that this was something that would be valuable in our lives. The value that we would see, I guess, in what music has brought to us is that it's just a language that you can take anywhere.
If we could empower our children to want to have that life too. And so we provide those opportunities for the 3 children. They go to lessons, but they do practice every day. Do they enjoy practicing every day? I would suggest that once they get into it, yes, they do, but they certainly don't be lining up, and asking when do we start our practice. I can see the benefits of it, that they work on a discipline and that they develop behavioural skills for being able to sit down and to focus and to actually do something of quality rather than just wasting the time. So I can see that manifesting itself in other disciplines such as their homework and stuff, that they have a grounding or a discipline in actually carrying through something. So I do see the benefits of it as well. Without sounding like a dictatorial family, I do see that it actually ingrains discipline also in whoever partakes in practice.
I wrote a suite of music based on the life of Countess Markievicz. So the piece is meant to represent Countess Markievicz in prison in 1916. Her comrades in arms have been shot at dawn on different mornings. She's there hearing it, and she's wondering what's going to happen to her, what's life going to be for her from now on. Her dreams are shattered, her dreams are dead. What's next? So Jerry Ray means the end of an era. So that's the piece is trying to encapsulate those feelings.
all my orchestral work or inspiration does come directly from the harp and the harp tradition, the old harp tradition, because if you think back to the 1600s, the harp tradition in Ireland was basically a European Baroque classical genre of music. Whether I like it or not, I do write in what I would say a classical sort of style as well. And I definitely think in terms of strings and ensembles and classical harmonies and counter melodies. So I do like to fuse traditional dance tunes with orchestral type accompaniments or arrangements.
But there's nothing more exciting, I think, as a musician, as a traditional musician, of being in an orchestra where you've got 60 people playing, the best musicians possibly in the country, playing around you, 15 fiddles, stroke violins, 4 or 5 flutes, instruments across every instrument, and the sound is just amazing. So we're going to play 2 pieces now from the Famine Suite. There are 2 slip jigs, and one of them is called Sailing to Sligo or From Sligo, and the second one is Chapel Street. At the time Michael wrote the suite back a long time ago now, in 1996, he was living in Sligo, and he was living in a street around the corner from the guard station, which is called Chapel Street. And of course, there was a port in Sligo from which an awful lot of people emigrated on coffin ships and on the forced emigration, I guess, through the famine. So it has a lot of links to Sligo, and also the intertwined link now to Derry through the In Bulk Festival. So we'll try those 2 slip jigs.
My main subject was music and also Irish, but you see, through Irish, it's not just the language, it's the history behind the language, and it's also the history associated with Ireland, because even though you know your history, it doesn't necessarily mean that you know how to focus in on the right things. There's a lot of history out there. The beauty of it is that sometimes, because it's music and there's no words there, you can let your imagination run wild through music, and therefore not have to state the obvious, and let maybe people go off on their own journeys through music, so that you don't. So music is a great facilitator in like that.
So I wrote this piece for Music Generation Laois, and the title I put on it was An Critchtra, and I wrote it, I suppose, for a lady called Siobhan Buckley, who is the director of the harp ensembles and some of the trad orchestras there as well.
I think that we're at a stage in our lives now, after playing 20, 25 years together, that people are nearly as interested in our stories of our touring and maybe the stories behind tunes and why we come up with pieces. And, so what does an audience get? I think that when they listen to June and I, that they probably get a sense of relaxation, that they probably enjoy the sound, and they probably enjoy the stories and the interaction that we share.
I would say that Irish traditional music is currently stronger than it ever was. There's a massive amount of young people playing music. There's thousands of children across the country going to classes, north and south, across the world, in fact, as well. it's very much broadened into wider society in terms of acceptability.
Whereas music in 2021, music is online in 2021, but it's still there, and that's the important thing. And it is, I see, my son will have a session online through Zoom with one of his best friends. Neither can hear each other because they can hear us themselves, because we don't have the proper latency in order for people to play together properly. But that means that one person mutes and the other person plays, but they're still playing. And so even though we're in this situation where we are, I would say there is an unbelievable amount of online stuff going on through the different social media. So I would also concur with you in that music is as strong as ever in 2021, even though we're not performing it in a live audience. It's still there and it's still as rich as ever.
So we're going to finish off with 2 reels for you. The first one is a lovely reel that Tommy Peoples composed. It's one of loads of Tommy Peoples tunes. They're known as Tommy Peoples reels or jigs. And the second one then is a great Sligo tune. I grew up listening to Peter Horn and Fred Finn myself as a child and as a flute player, and I'd be very inspired by their music and the fiddle flute duo. So the second tune was a version that they played of The Boys of the Loch.